Hey everybody, welcome back to Out of the Ordinary with Jay, and my interview guest today is
Matt.
And Matt, how old are you?
I am 50 years old.
50. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so half a century. And where are you from?
I am from Tempe, Arizona.
Okay, born and raised, or?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Not technically born in Phoenix because that's where the hospital was.
Okay, but
otherwise, yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna ask you my kind of like a top 10 favorite questions of mine that I like to ask people.
All right.
And hopefully everybody will find this interesting. By the way, whether you find this interesting or not, please hit the like button and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Okay, so yes, just like that. Yes. Okay, so what are your thoughts on aging? And what I mean by that, it could be just your thoughts on aging generally. Aging gracefully, fighting it. What's the perfect age? Health, happiness, anything to do with aging. What are your thoughts? It's at 50. You should have some good insight here.
So many thoughts.
Okay.
It's hard to define what aging gracefully is to me, because to some people it's accepting it, which is definitely the opposite of me. I'm pretty well known for having a Peter Pan complex.
Yeah. I concur. Same.
Still playing competitive sports, still acting like a kid.
Never say die. You know what though? Can I just interject on that? I think part of that, I know it's the opposite of acceptance, which is an important thing anyways, but I think that fight helps keep you younger longer, right?
I agree.
If you're trying to stay looking young, or you're trying to, work out so you can compete, or even just playing sports so you can keep doing it, I feel like not throwing in the towel in itself helps keep you younger.
Yeah,
my opinion.
That's my opinion as well, and also I think there's a lot of data that backs that up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So okay. So any other thoughts on aging?
I mean,
do you like it?
No, not particularly.
Okay. No, you don't.
I mean, I don't hate it. Nothing terrible's happened. But like, I used to not need glasses to read the tiniest print right here.
Yeah.
I'd make my phone as small as possible to have all the real estate I could. And now I'm holding it out here. I got to throw on a pair of glasses. That's annoying to me, but it's not the end of the world. The fact that if I jam my finger or I get a bruise, that it heals in 5 days instead of 2. That's annoying. I
will say one of the interesting things I find about when I ask the aging question and like, what's the perfect age and what do you think about aging? If I ask 20 or 30-year-olds, they're okay with it. They're okay with the aging, and they're even looking forward to being older in some senses. When I ask 40 to 50-year-olds, they don't like aging, usually. I mean, this is not a hard and fast rule. When I ask people over the age of 60 what they think about aging, they don't seem to mind it too much, which is interesting. So it's like,
to look forward to.
So there seems to be this unsweet spot of 40 to 50 where people don't seem to like it. So
it's interesting to me in that those things I mentioned, they're not that big a deal. I think they bother me because I see them as harbingers of things to come.
Right.
Like my knees are gonna start killing me just getting out of the chair. And I'm not there yet. I actually feel pretty good, I think, for my age. But as certain things start happening, then I'm like, well, everything else is eventually gonna fall apart too, and I'm not gonna like it.
Right. Like in your 20s, if you sprain an ankle or something, you're like, you literally don't give it a second thought because you're like, well, it'll heal in a little bit of time.
Right.
You do it when you're like 50, then you're like, oh, how long is this going to take? And is it going to come back? I
think my ankle's going to kind of hurt for the rest of my life.
Right. Okay, so this is along the same lines of aging, but suppose I had like a pill, the only pill that existed in the whole world. There's only one, and I bring it to you, and it will grant you immortality. You will stay this person or this physical person. You won't age anymore. So you be this how you are now. You'll be granted immortality, but you're the only one. Nobody else gets this pill. It's the only one. Would you take the pill?
Ooh, that's a tough call.
That's what I do. Tough questions, but you don't have to answer it too. We can skip it.
I mean, my initial instinct is hell yes.
Okay,
but then the idea of like watching, the people I love, my peers, my kids, my grandkids get old and
pass away.
Sounds pretty awful. So that's a tough question.
It is a tough question, but I'm going to give you somebody gave me a very interesting answer to this, and they said yes, definitely. And they sort of, and my initial thing to them was like, well, even though you'll lose all your family and all those arguments that you just made, and he said, yeah, he goes, but you have to imagine the future. People are going to be living longer. And he's like, so actually I'll have more family and more descendants and more people that know me. And I thought that was kind of an interesting, now it wouldn't be the ones that you're closest with, obviously.
Well, at least not now. There's nothing that says you couldn't.
You would become closer with them. Again, you're perpetually 50 in your case, right? So you'd have kind of this, it would be odd and weird, but he did make a kind of an interesting case that you would expand your...
Right. I mean, you're going to lose a bunch of people, but you're going to gain people.
Yeah. And
that you will then also lose.
But conceivably more as the, if longevity kept going.
Right.
Anyway, interesting. But okay, so you would or would not take it. We don't have a definitive answer.
I'm leaning toward yes, but it's not an easy answer.
Okay. Fair, that's good. That's your first person to answer that way, which is pretty honest, which is good. Okay, so now we're going to go in the opposite direction.
Okay.
What would you do if you found out definitively you only had 1 year to live? Somber tone.
I mean, I would just spend every last bit of time I could with my family, especially my young kids.
Yeah. So that'd be it.
I mean, I can't really think of any reason to spend my time doing anything else.
Gotcha. Not a moment wasted. 100% in, all in, family and kids. Yeah, that's a good answer. Okay. If you could travel back in time, what would you change?
Any
one thing, let's say. Any point in time, anything. If you could travel back in time, what would you change?
There's so many options.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I've heard everything from, kill Hitler to...
I mean, kill Hitler is one of the first ones that pops in my head.
To definitely not have that haircut in the 80s. So...
Also valid.
So I have, I
have the receipts.
It could really go in any direction,
I mean, how much power can I just change whatever I want to change?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think we're giving you carte blanche.
Like, could I just get rid of the African slave trade?
Okay.
For example.
There you go. That's what you would do. Yes.
That's definitely high on the list.
Okay. So if you could travel back in time, what would you change? Getting rid of the African trades, slave trade would be one of them.
Yeah. Right. It's hard to pick one thing. I mean, Hitler stopping Stalin would be huge too.
There's all kinds of things you could do. You could encourage some of the people that were some of our greatest minds to not kill themselves, right?
Yep.
Or have other people not kill other people that were important, or maybe ahead of time.
And can you make a permanent change? Like, I would make it so it's impossible to develop nuclear weapons.
Ooh. I don't know. I've not thought this question out that good, but let's go with that. That's a good one too. Okay, fine. So you got two. Okay, fine. Okay. This is a tougher question, so feel free to think on it for a moment. But what is the purpose of life to you? Like, what is the purpose of, why are we here? What is the purpose of life? Do you have any sort of guiding principle? What is the purpose of life?
You're right. That is a tough one.
Yeah, and you can go straight. There's straight scientific. Reproduce. And then there's all kinds of theological things that people will come up with, and everything kind of in between. But to you personally, what is the purpose of life?
Right. Because I'm a very,
assuming there is one,
science-based and logic guy, and from that vein, it's possible there isn't one. That this is all
right.
Just what happened to happen on this little rock in this little corner of this one galaxy, and it's random chance. That's entirely possible.
Yeah, I do think about that sort of. I'm like to your point. I'm like the tiniest, improbable, insignificant speck on a tiny little pale blue dot in the middle of nothing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just. It is interesting. Is there a purpose is a good question. And, so maybe
the purpose is to find out that answer.
Yeah, the purpose is to find a purpose.
I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, for me personally, it's kind of a balancing act between doing what I can to enjoy my life and make sure the people I care about are happy and healthy and enjoying their lives, while also not being a jerk.
Right. No, that could definitely be a purpose of life for sure, is to do good for those you care about, or I think that's plenty good. I like that. Okay. So what is something a person can do to stay healthy?
Uh, Exercise is the number one thing to me.
Like when you say exercise, like anything?
Yes, anything, whatever you like.
So whatever that might be. So if you can swim, swim. If you're into biking, bike.
Yes,
Just basically
absolutely.
stay mobile, move.
Yep. And if just walking is all that you can tolerate, that's still way better than not doing it.
Right. Well,
I mean, for me, it's playing sports, and I think that weightlifting is probably the most beneficial thing.
Yeah.
But some people hate that, or just aren't built for it. So,
well, the thing that I would say about, because I agree with you, I think that's good advice. But like with sports and weightlifting and all those things, is what's interesting to me is not its effect on its body, which should seem obvious, but the effect on the mind.
mm-hmm.
Like that's what's crazy. Like if I don't play, like sports is an incredible outlet for stress. You know what I mean? And just anyways, so it's weightlifting, to be honest with you.
Exercising kind of violates like Newton's laws to me, that
How so?
you expend energy and it gives you more energy.
Yeah, that is kind of a trip.
It's not true from a physics perspective, but like it's true. Like you using energy to do something like that actually gives you more energy.
Oh no, that is a fact. At least for the human condition, if you're a couch potato or you're somebody that's running marathon, energy begets energy,
Mm-hmm.
and being stationary begets more being stationary. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But anyway, okay, cool. We kind of probably already dabbled on this, but it's on here, so I'm going to ask it again. I think. What is the key to having a good life? Did we already answer that? Kind of purpose of life?
Kind of.
Okay, fine. We'll skip. Oh, here's a good one. Take your time on this one. But oh no, actually, I've got the next two are good. Okay, so do you have any tips for someone to have a bit easier time at life? Because from my perspective, I think, life's not always roses and sunshine. It's hard sometimes. It's hard a lot of the time. And so do you have like a tip or anything that could help people just have an easier go of it? Or for that's helped you?
To me, it varies greatly on the person.
Mm.
Like for me, accepting things aren't great all the time, I'm okay at that, just naturally.
You mean
like what you were just talking about?
In other words, you're saying you're naturally good at accepting that things are not perfect all the time. Wow. That's a bona fide superpower, folks. I'm just going to tell you. That's pretty good.
On the other hand,
yeah,
I am terrible when it comes to procrastination. So for someone like me...
I mean, you're terrible at procrastination, or you're really good at procrastinating?
I'm really good at procrastinating. I'm very good at procrastinating. Okay. I'm very bad at not procrastinating.
Okay.
just to be clear.
Just wanted to make sure. That's what I thought. Okay, so, okay.
Yeah, and it's...
Where do you think that comes from?
I honestly think it's genetic.
Yeah?
I think I got it more from my mom and just random genetics. Like my dad and my sister are very much the opposite on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now that would sort of lend itself to the genetics argument, being it's the exact same family and you guys are all so close and similar in so many other ways.
And it drives me nuts about myself as a logical person.
Mm-hmm.
Like the thing I want to do, I could still do after I did the thing I have to do. But I am so bad at that executive function of do the important thing or the necessary thing first and the fun thing second. And it's such a basic concept and I'm just so bad at it.
Yeah, it is interesting because you can have the introspection and analyze it. Like I know for me, not exactly the same, but like I know like when it came to like test taking and things in school or whatever, I'd have friends that like getting their studying going on, a week ahead of time, right when it was assigned by the teacher,
right.
Really going for it. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to last minute cram this stuff because I don't want to do it anyways. And that's what I would do is I was like this last minute crammer. And unfortunately or fortunately it worked, So I never corrected that behavior. But
that's the
I don't know where that
worked for me to a point. Like I got away with it in high school just fine. I was good at school.
Right.
I didn't get straight A's because I didn't do all my homework because I didn't need to learn the stuff. But I got away with it. It was fine. Yeah, there was some sleepless nights, but that's okay. But then you reach a certain point where people that are doing it right are passing you because cramming at the last second is just not efficient. Or like, yeah, I can go twice as fast as this other person, but they spent 4 times as much time on it as I did and had half as much stress, and they accomplished way more.
Yeah, I just remember there was a group of people in school that were just naturally more inclined to like do what the teacher said. They'd start reading early, and I'm like, oh my God, you could be playing video games or out with your friends. Are you crazy? Right? But they were interested. But I will tell you where that cycle can break for me, and probably with you too, is if the subject matter is very interesting or entertaining, then maybe procrastination.
It helps with me, but only to a point.
Only to a point.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is something, and it drives me nuts about myself, but there is something in my head that resists doing something that needs to be done, even if it's not something that I dislike.
Right. And isn't it interesting?
That's probably the negative side of that Peter Pan.
But isn't it interesting that like, and this is true for so many aspects, but just in this one thing we're talking about too, like you can identify that there's benefits to improving it, and yet be kind of powerless against your own self. Isn't that a weird?
It is weird.
It's bizarre.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah, that's a very, very interesting. Yeah. All right. So this leads pretty brilliantly into the next question. But so how can you be kind to people, or what is the best way to treat people that are doing things that harm themselves?
I mean, that's a really hard question.
It is a hard question. So imagine you know someone that's knowingly harming themselves, and maybe they even complain about it to you, just in the same way you were, like, oh geez, I just wish I wasn't a procrastinator, and I am, and it's harming themselves. And then not use that as an example, but just in general, someone that is knowingly doing themselves harm. Maybe they even tell you about it. Like, what's an appropriate way to respond as a friend or a person?
The most important thing I've learned when dealing with that in all kinds of different ways is, I don't know a better way to say it, but read the room. Like, someone can tell you or just do something that you know is hurting them. And if you just flat out tell them, you shouldn't do that, and here's why, you're going to get a lot of resistance. They're going to feel self-conscious or attacked and inclined to push back.
Right.
And there are things that they need to hear, but you just, when I say read the room, like, you have to say as much as you can without causing that negative pushback. And sometimes that's nothing or almost nothing. And you just have to be patient. Because in my experience, people are not going to listen to something they don't want to hear, even if it's 100% correct, and you say it nicely and you say it correctly.
And also, I would add to that, I feel like most of the time they already know.
Right.
You're not giving them new information. You know what I mean? They
in many cases.
I think I think lots of times they already know. And so when you espouse your view, it's almost like, they're just now, oh, they know I'm this way. Right. You know what I mean? And
maybe they've been beating themselves up over it, and now it just feels like piling on.
Most likely they have been for years or for a long time. I mean, it's been, that's why I'm saying I don't know what is the best way to handle that. Because also, if you say to someone, I don't know, say just for instance, somebody's, to use something that's pretty popular in our culture, somebody's like overweight and they're complaining about being overweight or whatever, and you say something to them. I mean, it's probably not, you're probably not going to give them some brain busting diet they haven't heard about, or some idea they haven't heard about, or whatever. And it's almost like I feel like sometimes when you tell people, try to answer them or give them advice, it's like you're almost giving them a vote of no confidence. Like, you're too dumb to know. You need to hear it from me because you've not thought of this. Right. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, I don't know how that's helpful. I'm asking the question because
I've known a few people that just have this almost irresistible urge to sit there and tell other people how they should be living their life, whatever it is. And I know I don't react well to it. And in my experience, nobody else I've seen them do that too. They might smile and nod politely, but they don't like it. It doesn't have the desired effect. Now, granted, those people weren't necessarily even right that I'm talking about.
Right.
But no one responds well to just being lectured about how they should be living their life.
I totally agree with that.
You're like, I'm not a 12-year-old. Stop talking to me like that.
Right. And I would say in some respects, sometimes I'm guilty of that, but I'll give you my reasoning, and I'm not saying it's right, but it's like, I learned this trick in life, right? And I've seen it be highly beneficial. Mm-hmm. I care about you. You should know about this trick. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of like the logic that I go through. Or, geez, it took me 5 years to figure this out. If someone would have told me this one sentence, it would have saved me 5 years of turmoil. And so, like, I want to, like, you know, I think it's in our sort of, we want to pass that on or help people. Sure. But at the same time, it's like...
But also, if they start, their eyes glaze over when you start, you should probably stop and not finish that thought.
100%.
It's really hard for both of us, I think, to do that.
100%. But also, it's almost like, even though you, like, want to help, you know, say you came up with some brain-busting advice, and it was good advice, and they took it, you know, in a way, sure, you helped them, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But you did deny them their own journey and figuring it out on their own.
Possibly. You know,
which is... you know, interesting. But then if you had a horrible journey yourself, you're like, oh, trust me, you want to be saved this journey. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing. And I think that, I mean, my thoughts on help are a couple. One, I think helping people isn't innately selfish. It's something you want to do. You want to help people because it makes you feel better. So I think it's innately selfish. That said, it's also innate that we want to try to help people. I mean, that's part of the human condition. Pass along our knowledge to the next generation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, anyway, it's a weird situation. So I don't know if we answered anything, but we did discuss the question. Okay, so kind of along the same lines, I guess. Do you think people really, really care to understand your point of view or your ideas or your opinion? Do you think people really care? Like, can I give you one example real quick? Just I remember one time I had to let somebody go at a job. And I was like, I remember being so thought out of, and they had earned it. You know, they probably should have been fired 10 times ago. And so then I'm like, okay, well, but I still care about them as a person. And, you know, so I went out of my way to find maybe another job that's a better fit, you know, help them out and all this stuff. And I went through this, you know, 2 or 3 days of like coming up with the exact right way I'm going to tell them that they're terminated and hopefully help them move on to the next thing. And they did the eyes glazed over thing that you're talking about. They're like, so I'm fired? That's all they cared about. Do you know what I mean? So they didn't really care to understand my whole thing, which I probably was just doing that to make myself feel better. But so anyway, the question, that's just an example, but so do you think people really care to understand, say, your point of view or your ideas or your opinion, or do they just want, like, just tell me what you want, pal?
I think it varies tremendously by person and by situation.
Okay.
Because there are people that really do care a lot of the time what other people are thinking and feeling, where they're coming from, but there could be situations where they could not care less about that too. And then there's other people that honestly, unless it somehow benefits them to know it, just probably don't care that much about that other point of view. And not in a like negative, I'm smarter than everybody else sucks kind of way, but just a lot of people don't seem to be wired to really have any desire to understand.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's an individual thing, because some people care like, hey, how did I get into this situation? And where other people are like, well, I'm in this situation. What's the situation? Just, you know, I mean, just tell me where I'm at. Like, and I think both have merit. You know, one side or one group really wants to have more understanding, and this side's like, well, I just want to like move on, right?
Yeah, what can I do with this information?
That's pretty good. Okay, so what is a favorite place you have ever been to? A place, yeah.
A place?
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii.
Yeah. Whereabouts?
When I was between 5th and 6th grade that summer, my family did a trip to 4 of the islands there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did Oahu, Maui, Hawaii, and Kauai. Mm-hmm. And then I've been to Oahu on a vacation and Maui on a vacation since.
Do you have a favorite of those?
It's hard to say for sure because I was so young, but I remember even being 12, absolutely blown away at how lush and green Kauai was.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Kauai is my favorite. Kauai is
really
my favorite.
like
It is like a jungle. It's like every Jurassic Park movie on.
It totally
it's amazing.
Even though I think they actually filmed most of the scenes on Maui.
Yeah,
but Kauai feels more like
it's incredible. It's incredible. Okay, couple last questions. If money was no object, now you've identified this Hawaii place as your favorite place you've been so far, but if money was no object and you could bring anyone you wanted with you, where would you live?
Where would I live?
Now you could take anyone you want with you. Money's no object. You could pick any place on the planet to live. Any country, any city, doesn't matter.
I mean, I'd want to visit almost anywhere.
No,
Don't
I'm
get
not
me wrong.
Okay,
live.
Live. This is to live.
Well,
and you could.
I feel like my fairly certain answer may have been affected in the last few months.
Okay.
Because like Malibu, the nicer scenic parts of, as much as I don't like inner LA that much.
Yeah.
That weather, that scenery, up until it all burned down.
Yeah, it was impossible to beat. I mean, it's probably the nicest weather, one of the nicest places on the planet. So, okay, I could see that.
San Diego, Carlsbad's cool too. I think I'd want to be a little closer to stuff on a daily basis.
But what I'm hearing overall is SoCal, Southern California.
Yeah, there's so much scenic wise, outdoors wise, city wise.
Anything to do entertainment wise is there, literally from Disneyland to Hollywood to.
And I actually love the Bay Area too. I wouldn't mind living in Marin County either, but if I was in, say, Malibu, I'm a lot closer to Marin County than I am now.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And I mean, that wouldn't be my first place to visit if money was no object. Don't get me wrong, but to live somewhere.
To live. This would be to live. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So fine. Okay. I like the good answer. Yeah, hopefully they rebuild that place and make it nicer than ever. Man, I don't remember how many people have been like displaced and everything, but man, that is going to be a wild thing with the economy, the rebuilding, I'm just imagining, I mean, how many thousands of people are out of their homes? Like they're all, probably, you can imagine their jobs and everything are still there. Their kids still go to school there, if their school's even there.
School's still there, yeah.
But like, where are they all supposed to live?
Well,
like they already had a housing shortage. Like where are they going to even go?
Had lost their insurance before this happened. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with that.
I'm just trying to figure out like where would they even go? I mean, it's only so many friends' houses. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like just anyway, rough situation.
I can't picture all these people moving to like Riverside.
Just the craziest thing.